Corresponding parts. To introduce this topic, this is a picture that I took this summer when Mr. Peters and I traveled to the Grand Canyon in Arizona. And this was on the way back. This was a waterfall that was about 3 miles off the highway. We had to hike back to it through some pretty deep sand, and it was kind of amazing when we got there. The picture right now doesn't show the scale, but this spot right here is pretty much as tall as one person. It was a really tall waterfall, and the pool in front of it was really nice and cool after a really long hike. So it was a really great spot to stop. Corresponding parts. When two shapes are similar or congruent, the parts of this shape that are in the same relative spot are called corresponding parts. Let's look at an example. Corresponding angles. Well, corresponding angles, those are angles that are in the same relative spot. Well, what does relative mean? That means they're in the same approximate location. So here, angle A is this kind of big fat daddy angle here at the top. Well, the corresponding angle would be this angle here, and that's known as angle A prime. It's the new and improved A. This shape here is the shape that's happened after we've had a translation or a slide. So A prime is the new and improved A, and it corresponds to A. B corresponds to B prime, C to C prime, D to D prime, and E corresponds to E prime. We can also have corresponding sides. Here, I've not just made a translation, I've made a reflection of the shape. But even still, we have corresponding angles and corresponding sides. When you're listing corresponding sides, you want to make sure you use the proper notation. We can say that side AB corresponds to this side here, which is B prime and A prime here. So side AB corresponds to A prime, B prime. There are other pairs of corresponding sides as well. Sorry, that A prime had been reflected, and I didn't mean for it to be reflected. B prime corresponds to B, angle B, and if I move this, we can also say that side length BC corresponds to B prime, C prime. When you are listing these, make sure to put this line above the top. That means that it's line segment. So line segment AB corresponds to line segment A prime, B prime. Line segment BC corresponds to B prime, C prime. We can also have a corresponding part between CD and C prime, D prime. Between DE and D prime, E prime. And from EA to E prime, A prime. Your turn. At this point, I want you to take this arrow, and after it's been rotated, I first want you to list the new names. So label this A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime, E prime, F prime, and G prime. Then I want you to list the angle that corresponds to angle C and the line segment that corresponds to the line segment that corresponds to side EF. Pause your video at this time. Did you label your rotated triangle correctly? If you did, give yourself a star. If you didn't, go back and see how the previous two shapes were labeled. Now let's look at the corresponding angles. Did you get that angle C corresponded with angle C prime? If you did, give yourself a smiley face with some really funky hair. Lastly, did you get that side EF corresponded to side length E prime F prime? If you did, draw a mustache on your smiley face. If you did not get any piece of this, go back to the previous examples and see what you missed. For homework tonight, create your own shape and list 2 pairs from that shape of the corresponding sides and 2 pairs of corresponding angles. When you do this, please make your shape irregular. What I mean by that is don't have a triangle like this where it's going to be difficult to tell how it's been rotated, translated, or reflected. Instead, use a shape that looks like this, where it's going to be a bit easier to decide if your shape's been reflected, rotated, or translated. See you tomorrow.